Today on the Tech Bytes podcast, we welcome back sponsor MinIO to talk about how AI is altering the data infrastructure landscape. We're also going to dig into MinIO's recently launched AI Store. This is a software-only distributed object store that offers simplicity, scalability, and performance for AI infrastructure and other high-performance storage use cases. Our guest is Tigley, CTO at MinIO. Welcome to the podcast. And can you give us some quick background on MinIO and how you're differentiating yourself in the object storage space?
MinIO is a drop-in replacement for AWS S3 APIs as well as the full stack services. And the big difference for MinIO is we can run anywhere else. So we always started the company to be the alternative to AWS S3 services outside AWS ecosystem, whether it's on the edge, on different clouds, different Kubernetes services. MinIO could be running on everywhere else. Simplicity, high performance, and the best-in-class support are the key pillars of MinIO for the last 10 years. We are open source company, and this has been the most important part of the reputation MinIO has, and it's been quite popular with developers. And over the last 5 to 6 years, we've been getting into the IT as well as data use cases in the enterprise.
Now, we've been talking a lot on Packet Pushers about how artificial intelligence is affecting data networks. So we've talked about what a DC build looks like these days and speed requirements and concerns about buffering and packet loss and that kind of stuff. Now, MinIO's got a storage perspective on this. So how is AI from MinIO's perspective affecting data infrastructure? And I'm really curious to know if it's different from big data, which we've been talking about forever.
The way it worked in the past was the foundation of the AI wave, the AI trends, and the way of AI developers and AI applications are trying to handle data has always been built by the data lake houses, the data lake house architecture, or the modern data lakes, or different marketing names that different vendors has been giving to the architectures that's been built. But the big data was, or the Hadoop going back 20 years. Hadoop started this trying to organize the data in a way that the scale, performance, and security is going to be handled by these solutions. But none of them in the last 20 years has been quite successful trying to get them under one umbrella. AI expands this picture a little bit further because you have to have a checkpointing ML flow, Kubeflow type of an activity, some kind of a pipeline. You have to have vector databases. You have to have Hugging Face and a repository for all the models and data sets. So it expands this picture into various areas. And what we do is MinIO is the foundation for all of these. Vector databases started at a later age, and they have to use object storage because they started with object storage. And to your specific questions, when you go look at the networking and the data challenges, it's all about the scale and performance. The data networks of Hadoop of 1 gigabit is not the networks that you use today. 100 gigabit is the networking that we use with AI infrastructure. All of our customers that are large scale AI deployments and using for distributed training, they have to have 100 gigabit network data networks and then NVMe on the server side supporting it to feed their GPUs, because there's this problem in the industry called hungry GPU problem. And in order to feed those GPUs, you need the lowest latency, least amount of hops, and the simplistic networking with the highest bandwidth possible. We can talk about what we are going to do with our AI Store product and the technologies that we are investing in. For example, S3 over RDMA is critical for the next 2-3 years, because when you go from 100 gigabit Ethernet, you're going to go to 400 and then 800. When you get to those levels, the number of packets that you have to process at the storage, at the CPU and networking layer tremendously increases. And that requires different protocols than TCP/IP, and we are looking at RDMA over Ethernet. Ethernet is the base, but RoCE or RDMA over Ethernet is what we are investing on, and we are having an S3 over RDMA. Essentially, we're going to be one of the few people who are focusing on this solely, and that's going to help tremendously for the AI infrastructure, AI use cases. And to answer your question, the data infrastructure will tremendously change when you go to those higher speeds. For the next 1 to 2 years, it's great because 100 gigabit, when you combine it with 2 times 100 gigabit, will be totally fine even for the largest use cases. But at 2 year out, 3 year out, we see this changing.
So can you give us sort of what a sample architecture might look like for AI infrastructure built around a large data lake and using object storage?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's no different than predictive AI has been done for the last 15 years. We talked about big data, and Hadoop started that effort, moving things to big data. Everything that you know of with a modern data lake and a warehousing architecture, the two layers, which is query engine. The only big change was the query engines were getting separated, so disaggregation of storage and compute, if you will.
Okay.
So Trino, Dremio type of a query engine is natively S3 compatible, and they can easily use object storage. So you have different engines, query engines, requesting data from the modern data lakes, which is the raw data, which we have been replacing HDFS very successfully in the field. And people have been using, Hadoop has written S3A connectors, and it's been out there for many years. And MinIO has been using S3A to replace the 3 copies of Hadoop and reducing the cost of it to about 1.2 to 1.4, depending on the erasure coding you're choosing. So it's a tremendous cost saving just to go from a HDFS piece replacement of that in a Hadoop ecosystem and inject object storage or MinIO there. You are saving tremendous amount of money. And we have a few customers that has done this in a large scale, and they have been very successful in terms of the simplicity environment, how many people are running this environment, and how they simplify their infrastructure. So it would be just a modern object store like MinIO, query engines, that would be the modern architecture. But when you go to the AI infrastructure, you expand this picture into 2, 3 other sections on what I call about the ML flow, Kubeflow type of a pipeline, any type of a pipeline. Some people like OpenShift, for example, has OpenShift AI, which is their open source components as the pipeline. And at the bottom, you need vector DBs. Most of the LLM work in the enterprise today is going with LLM plus RAG, and you have to have a vector database. Milvus, LensDB, if you look at their documentation, they all recommend MinIO. They started using MinIO when they were developing, and they recommend that to their customers. So you need that vector DB piece, because when you have the corpus data, the data corpus of what you're doing for LLM plus RAG type of an environment, you need to insert them to a vector DB and take them out for prompting and other activities. And then you need model and data sets, which is early days of GitHub and GitLab. For the enterprise, everything is on-prem. So you need a version of Hugging Face on-prem. And this is what we have done with AI Store, MinIO's only commercial product. We have built a on-prem Hugging Face equivalent. Basically, on buckets that we have on MinIO can be enabled with the Hugging Face API. So a developer can easily use, without a change of code, they can take the data sets and the models that they're using in a Hugging Face, but put them on-prem and use their on-prem copies. So the same fashion that we have replaced S3 APIs and services for on-prem, we are doing the same thing for AI infrastructure with Hugging Face data sets and data models. They can just take the same models, make it between their four walls, store them on a bucket on object storage from MinIO, part of the AI Store product that we are launching for our customers and we're providing to our customers.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good time then to kind of drill in a little bit more on AI Store. What is it that you're building? Why might companies building out AI infrastructure want to take a look at it?
So the storage for AI represented specific challenges. We covered some of them. The scale is very important because the huge bandwidth and capacity needs because of the distributed training and modifying the models, training in distributed inference, distributed training, and then inference parts. They all, especially with the inference, you had to have the checkpoints that required more and more. So the scale was the problem. The other part was we covered with the data networking. The challenge was the performance, the high I/O bandwidth between the last stop or closer to the GPU. So there's no hungry GPU problem. We covered that part as well. That was the performance challenge. And then protecting the data security. Most of our customers, or nearly all of our customers, enterprise customers, they all wanted to control their data because of LLMs is commodity nowadays, but LLM plus RAG or injecting their proprietary information into the models or prompting with those models, they didn't feel comfortable putting something out there. Meaning using cloud services or using other services that are available publicly. They wanted to do it themselves because that proprietary data is the really important piece when it comes to training the models, modifying the models, and increasing the accuracy, also making them relevant for their customers. So if you think about JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, they all announce their AI chatbots that's internal to their internal to their employees, where they can just check research papers or they can ask certain things about a financial product. And all of those were done using their own proprietary data. Same with Bloomberg. They have tremendous amount of data and they announce their AI initiatives. They all leveraging their own internal data. So security or protecting the data or controlling the data, this is not the security we are talking about. Cloud is not secure enough. We should have everything on-prem type of activity. See, when we talk about security challenge, they needed their data to be on-prem because when they inject this data to a LLM that is outside, they didn't want the leakage. They didn't want to share that data. All of that
Right.
put
They don't
together.
want their private data going out to a public model and suddenly be incorporated into somebody else's AI chatbot.
Exactly. It can be the training for somebody else's product, or it can be the data, the source data, or there can be many different ways to look at it. Because of those things, we have come to the conclusion that we always did really great with object storage, high performance distributed object storage, best in class simplicity. But then we have seen over the last 5 to 6 years, we have seen our enterprise customers asking us for caching, for example, that data for read caching. They ask for observability. We were publishing all of our data for Prometheus and Grafana to build dashboards, but our customers wanted to not install another product. They want or Elk or Splunk to do the observability for audit logs for other things. So we built our own observability, both for the internals of the disks and how the disks are doing, to audit logging, to error logging, everything. Load balancing, they wanted to control things. So we built all these feature sets on top of the core of the high performance distributed object stores we already have. And this is also aligned it together with some of these feature set that we just mentioned, whether it's prompt, which we haven't talked too much about it, but Hugging Face APIs and having the data sets and the data models being stored on the buckets. All of them put together is the AI store, and this is our commercial product. MinIO will have AI store with all of these features built, available to the customers, and for specifically the use case of AI infrastructure.
So, I think a point to make here is this is not just a rebranding exercise so you can get on the
No.
AI train. You've actually done
No,
something with the product.
absolutely not. This is not the new bottle, old wine. This is not rebranding. This is not marketing. I can go through, I think, eight different feature sets. And if you look at it in the legacy software world, they would be their own products if you were to go into those kind of details. So we built tremendous amount of this has been going on for the last 1.5 years of development cycle. So we built all of these feature sets and we packed them into one product. So going forward, the commercial life of MinIO is very straightforward. It's single product. Focus is the AI infrastructure, and all of these things that we are talking about is going to be tremendously helpful for those folks who are doing on-prem, large-scale AI distributed training or any kind of AI infrastructure.
So one feature you hinted at that you felt like was unique to AI Store was something called prompt object. Can you just give us a little overview of that?
I believe that's the coolest piece that's in the whole stack. There are many other features. We built our own KMS, for example, for encryption. We always work with HashiCorp Vault, Gemalto, and others, and integrated into that. We even did some caching type of an activity called KES. But we built our own KMS part of this. We built our own catalog, which is like a GraphQL in a in-memory database where we can take all the namespace in an object store and query those things. But relevant to the AI questions that you had, prompt object is basically an introduction of a new S3 API. We can do these things because we are the market leader when it comes to following the S3 product and S3 specs. And prompt object basically enables users, developers to do basically we have unstructured objects or unstructured data. All the objects can be JPEG files, it can be CSV files, different type of files. But think about an image. You're just doing put of a receipt that is from a restaurant in California, and you're putting another receipt from a restaurant in New York, let's say. Two different restaurants, and all of the addresses and what's being charged and the receipts are there. These are two objects. You're putting them into the MinIO object store, and with using prompt object, you can pass through an LLM, you can pass a basic prompt. You can say, what's the address on that receipt? That gets passed through this API. We can extract the address within that object. This is going one step further. This is going inside the object, basically, looking at that image, extracting the address, and the output would be the address of that restaurant in California.
So I can take an image file and get text out of it, essentially, is what you're saying. I don't need a text file to get an LLM.
You can not only text, the text part is the easy. You can get context out of it. You can mean that developers can exponentially expand these capabilities to do for MRI scans. They can do KYC for financial analysis. You can get context. You can not only get the text. The cool thing about this when we do the demos to our prospects and customers, you can compare these two images, the New York receipt and the California receipt, and then see what kind of restaurants were they. So you can easily say, what's the difference between the two objects or two receipts? And you will get, oh, this one is a Mexican restaurant. The receipt has tacos. And the other one is a vegetarian restaurant in New York and XYZ. And you can get this context. That's powerful. And having this type of we were always doing put an object into an object store and get by an application. With this, we can do a put, but do a prompt. Prompt meaning get the context out of that object, understand the what's inside that object, basically. In this simple example, it was two receipts, but it can be an MRI scan. It can be a KYC application and an image of a person or an ID. Or you can have an image of a person and see how many of is this image in any of these videos? You can do tremendous amount of things, and it's one line code, and it's just natural language processing, basically. You are just asking the question just like you would ask to anybody.
I feel like we scratched just the surface on AI Store and what it can do. But if folks want to dig around and get more details, find out more information, or even reach out to MinIO to get more details, where should they go?
Best place would be min.io. We have all the blogs, all the resources and materials that all the things that we are talking about here is available there. You can reach to us, and then we can jump on a call with you, with anybody who's interested to go into the details, technical details of all these things we talked about.
Fantastic. That was min.io, and it's right there in the name, MinIO. Thanks, sir, for being here. And thanks to MinIO for being a sponsor. And thanks to you for listening. You can find this and many more fine, free technical podcasts along with our community blog. It's all at packetpushers.net. You can follow us on LinkedIn, hear us on Spotify, and rate us on Apple Podcasts. And last but not least, remember that too much infrastructure would never be enough.